I'm joined today by Chief Richard Mello, the new police chief for the City of Lebanon. And the purpose of this session is to introduce you to the chief and learn a little bit more about what his plans are for the department, the vision, and the goals that he is thinking about for the department. So I'd like to start off by going over a few of the highlights of his resume, and then a number of the comments that other people have made about him when we were considering him to be the chief. We did have a number of very qualified applicants, but you'll see from some of the comments that I received why I decided to appoint the chief as I did. He comes to Lebanon from Hollis, New Hampshire, where he was second in command there. Before that, he served as the detective sergeant, division officer in charge. Before that, patrol sergeant, division officer in charge. Before that, I was a police officer with the department, where he served as the Southern Hillsborough County Cybercrime Task Force representative. He also served on the Manchester Police Department for 6 years and on the Concord Police Department for 1 year. He holds a master's in criminal justice from Florida State University, and his BS degree in criminal justice is from Hesser College in Manchester. He has many courses in leadership and many certificates in training as well. He has teaching experience with the Southern New Hampshire University at Manchester, Middlesex Community College in Lowell, Massachusetts. He's also a veteran. The chief in Hollis described him thusly: in a word, Lieutenant Mello is phenomenal. He stated that he is loyal, respectful, hardworking, and open to new ideas. He stated that he hits the ground running and is a community police warrior. I love that term. Also that he is very professional and never seems to get rattled, although he hasn't seen me at budget time yet. That he's firm but fair. Others have described him as loyal, honest, supportive, fair, and someone who would give you the shirt off his back to people who would do the right thing. Yet another said he was a steady Eddie. That's been attributed to me as well in the past, so I can appreciate that one. And there's more. I'm going to continue to embarrass you for a little bit here. There's a lot here. I'm just trying to hit the highlights. Comment: one of the most well-rounded police officers they'd ever known, that he is exceedingly bright, diligent, detail-oriented, honest, reliable, and a true and natural leader. That he has no real weaknesses.
My wife might disagree.
That he has an amazing natural command presence, but he leads without being belligerent or arrogant, and that people naturally looked up to Mr. Mello. He is the commensurate professional and can be tough as nails, but he also has a calm, personable, and affable demeanor. He comes across as capable, dependable, and in control. Others have said he's an exceptional communication ability, regardless of the format. He's extremely well-spoken, intelligent, articulate, and adjusts his style and language to fit his audience. That Mr. Mello has a clear, confident, thoughtful, truthful, and effective speaking style, and that people listen to him because of his natural command presence, a theme that is repeated on and on by those that know you well. But you're also very easy to understand and to relate to. Your written communication abilities are also excellent. Again, another one that says articulate, intelligent, knowledgeable, and experienced, and it's evident in your writing as well. That you have a clear, concise, and spot-on writing style that includes just the right amount of detail. Others have said that you excel in building consensus, bringing people together, that you're well-liked, respected, respectful, and a great listener. Referred to often as a team player, and that your leadership style is situational and adjusts according to your environment, that you can be tough or as gentle as necessary and not afraid to do what needs to be done. A couple more, then I'll stop. That you balance the need for law enforcement with a community, within a community, with the absolute need for the officers and organization to connect to the residents, community members, and stakeholders on a personal level. Another said, perhaps your greatest strengths are centered on your ability to lead, mentor, and empower employees to continually improve not only in their career development, but in services provided to the community at large. And that was one example that was very evident during the interview process, and one of the traits that I found so important to bring you to Lebanon, to assist our department to grow and to expand and to provide, once again, an ever-expanding mission to serve and protect the people of Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy that I was able to make that appointment. And welcome to Lebanon.
Thank you. I'm happy that you appointed me, and I'm very grateful to not only yourself, but the City of Lebanon and the Lebanon City Council. It's a great opportunity, and it was one that not only myself but my family we're very excited to receive. So thank you very much.
Could you tell us a little bit about what your vision and goals for the department will be, and a little bit about yourself first? I mean, I hit some highlights, but there's nobody knows you better than you,
right.
Exception of maybe your wife.
That's true.
She's not here.
That's true. Thank God she's not here to be interviewed. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I attended high school in Massachusetts, and went to college in Manchester, Hesser College, and that's what brought me to New Hampshire. Initially, I had two brothers who were in New Hampshire law enforcement who have recently retired. So after graduating college, it was an easy fit for me to stay in New Hampshire and pursue law enforcement in New Hampshire. And that's what I did. And I've been here for the better part of 25 or so years in the state. Been a police officer for roughly 22 or 23 years in New Hampshire. And we currently are in the midst of transitioning to the Lebanon area to live come spring, and married to my wife Stacy, and we have 3 children. My oldest being my daughter, who's 19, and I have 2 younger sons, 17 and 11. So that's a little bit about me. As far as the vision of the police department and where I see it going and how I see it evolving into the community is really to try to expand on the things that I think we already do fairly well. Like you mentioned, a lot of the community policing, community service type activity that I believe in, and that is one of my primary objectives in coming to Lebanon. Not that we don't already do that with the police department, we do. I think we have a decent footprint, but I'm looking to expand it. I'm looking to really integrate it into all the things that we do, and really take a problem-oriented approach to how we do policing.
Okay. I know one of the things you've done very early on is to get involved with the opioid crisis, and you sat in on several panels, one of which you organized. Mm-hmm. I happened to be sitting on both those panels myself. Can you tell us a little bit about the opioid crisis and why you're trying to take a lead in that right now?
Absolutely. So we did sit on a couple of different panels. One we were invited to sit on with Annie Custer, which was a kind of a round table and a brainstorming initiative. And the second was one that we had organized through the police department, invited city members and members of our local government, our fire department, and a lot of stakeholders in the community, physicians, service providers. So the crisis that's going on really New England-wide and certainly not immune to Lebanon is one that we have no answer to at this point in time. And that's the most alarming thing about the opioid crisis. So we have heroin and opioids that are really becoming commonplace in our community, in many communities around us and throughout New Hampshire. It's an addiction-based problem. It's not one that we can, and this is one of the quotes that I heard recently from Senator Ayotte, and I really liked it. She said in front of a committee in Washington, D.C., this is not a problem we can arrest our way out of. And that's very true. We make arrests on an almost daily basis for drug crimes, and especially heroin and opioids and other narcotics. That's not solving the problem. That is temporarily fixing that particular person's problem by taking them out of the community for a period of time, but they're going to be reintroduced into the community. And they're going to still have that addiction and that affliction. So we need to find better ways to handle it. We need to find better ways to provide treatment to those who are affected. And I think that's something that a number of leaders, both in local government, state government, and federal government, are trying to figure out the best way to do that. Roundtabling this issue with law enforcement and service providers and fire departments and local officials is a great start to trying to find a better way to do it. Law enforcement will never be out of the picture as far as the enforcement aspect, but we need to be better suited and better prepared to help on the service end of those things.
Right. I know from examination of the funds that were being expended on Barnstable County or Cape Cod, which has been a case study and a film made about the approach down there, that the overwhelming majority of the dollars spent were for interdiction and law enforcement. I believe that more needs to be spent in terms of education, treatment, and trying to bring those folks that are addicted back into society and integrate them once more so they can have successful lives once again.
Absolutely. And one of the points I made at the forum that we were at last week was when we arrest somebody who has a problem, an addiction to an opioid, we arrest them, they're given a court date somewhere down the line. It could be 2 months, 3 months down the road. And the question is, what happens in the meantime? From time of arrest to the time of the first court date, that person is still dealing with this addiction. And the treatment that is available is not necessarily readily available. There are beds that are becoming more and more available, but some treatment facilities may only have a half dozen beds, some may have a dozen beds. And this is a global issue. This is a community-wide, statewide issue. You could have probably 1,000 beds and fill them all, but there's probably a tenth of that available maybe in the state, and that's an issue. So the question for me as the chief of police is, how do I take the person that's been arrested for the third or fourth time this year for possession or use or even sales of heroin in trying to support their habit? How do I get them into treatment? What is that dynamic? What is that process? And what is that mechanism, which really doesn't currently exist in a manner that makes it streamlined? They're out there, and we're trying to work to become more efficient at that and find out what resources we can use and steer people towards, but it's not universal, and it's not at a place where we can really make a significant impact.
Well, I plan to have our next session in Lebanon in depth deal with that situation in a more detailed manner. So I don't want to get into that too much right now.
Sure.
Because another week from now we'll be doing that, and with yourself and with some of the nonprofit community as somewhat of a follow-up to the forum that you put together over in Seminary Hill last week. So we'll have some of those people in attendance as well. And just as a follow-up, we need to keep this in the front of the folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that it's again, it's going to take a sustained effort. It's not, okay, let's just haul the form and call it good. We need to keep this effort up for the good of our community. So that'll be something we'll be doing in the not too distant future. Again, I hope we'll be able to schedule that for next week. Can you talk a little bit about the policy you recently instituted with the department with regards to media
Sure.
and the why and what you've done?
So one of the first policies that I wrote and had instituted was a social media policy. In my previous position, I acted as the press information officer, and it was a more expansive responsibility than that. It was part of my duties as a second in command, but I really was able to, over the course of time, realize how important that position is and how important it is to put information out to the public, to our community members, to our residents, and even to those who come in to work and play in our communities. We use a number of different mediums, and the city had already had a pretty robust website as well as a social media presence. And I just looked to really try to tailor that to be more user-friendly for the department and more timely so that we can get information out to those that we serve. So we have a social media, we have a Facebook website that we were able to get a little bit more user-friendly control so that we can put information out quicker and more timely. And we push our press releases through that venue. We push community information, our programs, a number of different things. And it's very important to really connect to people on that personal level through a medium that is becoming so popular worldwide, not even just in New Hampshire. So I put a policy in place to be able to do that, to make that more user-friendly for the department, to control how we do that, to have some guidelines and some procedures. And the response thus far from the community has been overwhelmingly positive, and we're going to continue to do that because I think it's very important to keep people informed and be transparent in what we do.
I've heard some feedback already about some of the information that's being posted out there in Facebook and letting the public know just what you're doing, and it's been received very, very well to date. So I just want to let you know that.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Continue on. You talk a little bit about if you have any desire to move towards certification for the department.
So accreditation is one of the things that many departments do strive to achieve. In my previous position in Hollis, I was the accreditation manager. We were enrolled in self-assessment, what it's called, through CLIA, which is the international accreditation for law enforcement. I think that's something that can be useful for us down the road. There's a number of different things, a number of different steps you should take as a chief administrator to get your agency or your organization to that point. My assessment of the department so far, in almost 2 months of being there, is that I think that we're a very good candidate to become accredited in the future. Some of the things that we have to work on that we're currently working on is our policies. A CLIA accreditation is very policy-centric. It's the building blocks of what the accreditation process is. It provides you with very, very strict guidelines on how you do your business. It focuses on best practices in everything that you do. And it puts you in a position where it really minimizes or mitigates as much as possible the liability to not only the department, its officers, the city, and by virtue of the community. And I think that's what's very important. So what I'm trying to do is get us to a point where it will make sense for us to take that next step and evaluate whether or not that's an important program for the city, whether the city council would support such a initiative, because there's a cost involved.
I was going to say, sometimes it can be expensive.
But even regardless of cost, as a department and as the chief of police, I can bring the department to a point where we're emulating and using all those best practices, and that our policies reflect that, and bringing those up to speed and getting them to the point where even if we weren't supported in getting CLIA accreditation or weren't able to because of a cost issue, we're still looking towards those standards. We're practicing those standards, and when I write every policy that I've been working on, I write them with those standards in mind, and in using those as a guideline.
So you've already started.
I have, yeah. I've got at this point probably about 10 policies that were either under review and modification, or actually a brand new policy because we didn't have one previously.
Remember a quote about hit the floor running somewhere in there? I think that holds true.
Hit
Very
the ground
evident.
running, yeah, absolutely.
And again, a lot of what I've experienced working with you over these last several months bring evidence to those comments that have been made by others about what they've experienced with you in the past. And I see those things now, having worked with you for several months.
That's
and
great.
I'm very pleased that they were spot on with their assessment of you.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I'm a doer, and not just in this job, but in life, and it's who I am. And you know, I have a vision, and I know how I want to get there. And for me, it's important to bring the entire department into that vision and have them participate in that vision. So when I say I'm writing policy, really I'm facilitating this whole process, because I am assigning policies out to our patrol commanders. I'm assigning policies out to our detective commander, to our second in command, to our patrol captain. So this is a team effort. I'm driving the bus or steering the ship, so to speak, and I'm working on policy myself, but there's a career development aspect to this as well. It's not just bringing us up to best practices, it's making sure that those are coming behind me are ready to take on the responsibilities of the future, so that, you know, I'm building the next captain, the next lieutenants, the next deputy chief, the next chief of police. And that's all part of the same, the same practice.
Right. I also saw in there, it said that you were a leader and a doer. You talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy or management style?
Sure. You know, they're two different things, yet they're supposed to work together in concert. Right. And my leadership style is that of leading from the front, and you know, taking the approach that, you know, my integrity and my ethics and the things that I do should be things that I want the organization as a whole to emulate. I don't believe in, you know, saying one thing and doing another. I think it's very important for me to set that standard, and I set that standard high. And then I lead from the front. You know, I won't ask people in my organization to do anything that I haven't done already or I'm not willing to do. You know, for example, and you run into me one afternoon, is I'll get out into a police car and I'll go out there on patrol, either with the officers or by myself, and try to help out with calls. And it's a way for me to connect more personally with the community. It's a way to me to learn the community. It's a way for me to really lead that charge right from the front lines. And I can't do that all the time, obviously. I've got my responsibilities that I have to take care of in administration, but I also want to have my thumb on the pulse of what's going on, and that's a way of doing that. So that's my leadership style, so to speak. My management style is one that is constantly evolving. You can't have just one leadership or management style and be successful. You have to have the ability to move in and out of different management styles. It could be situational, and by and large, police officers and police administrators use a situational approach quite often, because we have to constantly change with the dynamic, the environment, what's going on. But there's also a participative aspect to managing a police department, where I wanted those in my organization to participate in the things that we're doing and adding value to the things that we're doing. So it really has to depend on what we're doing, the situation, whether or not we're doing something administrative, writing policy, whether we're trying to look at best practices and determine if the things that we're doing are up to snuff and up to par with the CLIA standard or a best practice standard, or if we're out on the street dealing with a dynamic situation. You know, I have to be a little bit more authoritative or direct in that instance. So you have to have the ability to use a number of different management styles and a number of different leadership styles to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I do myself. Yeah. Sometimes most of the time it'd be total quality management approach.
Sure.
Other times it's management by walking around. Other times it might be management by objective. So depending upon the situation you're in, you shift styles a little bit to meet the needs and to accomplish the goals that you set out to accomplish. So I can very well appreciate that, because I do it myself. Yep. You're here today in uniform. Is that something that's atypical for you? Because I know many chiefs don't wear the uniform. They prefer to wear civilian attire. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy about wearing the uniform?
Sure.
And how often you wear it, for instance?
I wear it every day. There hasn't been a day yet that I haven't worn it. I believe in wearing it, and everybody has their own style, everybody has their own approach. My approach is that I'm a police officer. I'm a sworn full-time police officer in the state of New Hampshire. I enjoy being a police officer, and I think it's important for those in the public and those in the community to see their police chief, be able to recognize him or her, readily identifiable, and I enjoy that interaction. For me to really connect with the community and for them to connect with me and understand where I'm coming from and who I am, they have to see me. And when you wear a suit and I'm walking around the City Hall area, I'm walking around the downtown, you're not going to be readily identifiable. So I want people to know who I am. I want them to be able to approach me and talk to me. If I am out in the street and something happens, one of our officers gets involved in something, I want to be there and recognized as a police officer. And I believe that it's a mix. My administrative duties, I go out into the community. I want to have that interaction and that presence no matter what I'm doing.
So would it be appropriate to say that you encourage people to come up to you and introduce themselves and say hello and get to know you on a face-to-face basis?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the initiatives that I really push forward. Some of the things that we've done thus far, as far as bringing a little bit of change to the way we've been doing business, is that we've been trying to increase our community policing opportunities, so to speak. So one of the things that I noticed, and I think I had said it to you the day I came in for the interview, is that I had parked in the Coleman Park area, and I had walked into City Hall, and I don't remember seeing any cruisers drive by, although I'm sure they were in the area. But one thing I did notice, and it really struck me, is that there was a lot of pedestrian traffic, and there's a lot of people coming in and out of the businesses and the restaurant and so forth and so on. And I thought, what a great opportunity for our officers to be out of a car, walking around down that area and being accessible to the public. So, our officers have been doing a fair share of that throughout the city. But one of the initiatives recently has been to put our officers there more frequently down in that area of City Hall. And for me as well. So I'll be down in that area. I'll be in and out of City Hall. I'll be walking around. I try to park my car in a place where I can walk through that area rather than into the back door sometimes. And, I encourage people to talk to me. I encourage people to meet and greet me. And I try to interact with as many people as I can when I have the opportunity.
And that's one of the purposes I have brought you here today for, was to let people get to know what you look like, so when they see you on the street, they might just come up and say hello and introduce themselves and get to know you better.
That's great.
Good. Have you had any luck yet finding a new domicile in the city?
I've been looking around, and I have small children. I had school-aged children, so getting them through school for the year, where we're coming from in southern New Hampshire, is important. So I've been keeping an eye on the market and keeping an eye on some areas that might be good for the family. But our plan is in very early spring to relocate. I try to stay up in this area a couple days a week and commute a couple days a week to try to strike a balance for the time being. But it's going to be nice to be able just to be settled here, so that the things that I like to do, I tend to have late hours, especially with meetings going on or some other things. So it's going to make it a lot easier to commute, certainly, and to be part of the community once we get up here.
Well, I recently went through that transition myself, and you're right. Once you find a new place, it'll be much more relaxing.
Yep.
And a lot easier in putting some of those stresses behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And wonderful school system here. I'm sure your children will enjoy it. Yep. My kids have left home. They're off to the university and into a working environment. But so it made it a little bit easier for us. But I was staying, at a motel for a period of time and going back on the weekends, and
Yep.
that was really tough. And at the same time, looking for a new home.
Sure.
And it was very stressful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you look forward to putting that aspect of your life behind you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do.
But I
look
can
forward
well
to that.
appreciate not wanting to take your children out of school in the middle of a school year.
Yeah, I mean, we try to keep the mutiny to a minimum at home. They're actually excited. I have one that's out of high school and into college now, so the impact on my oldest will be very minimal. My other son is moving towards being almost done with high school, and then my 11-year-old just wants to make sure I build him a new tree fort when we relocate. So that's his priority. But they're excited about it. My wife's excited about it. We love the area. it's such a beautiful area, no matter whether it's spring or winter, and it has a lot of advantages in that way. So there's a lot to do outside. We're outside people, outdoors people, so it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, we have a wonderful recreation program here in the city. I'm amazed at how much we offer as a city to
Sure.
our residents. Paul does a great job, and I'm sure your children will avail themselves to all those opportunities.
They absolutely will.
Whether it be the ski area or many of the other programs that we have.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
somewhat unique in what we do offer.
Yeah, true.
Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about yourself or about the department before we conclude?
Sure. I think the only thing I'd like to get out there is, and we talked about community policing and really connecting. Some of the programs that we're bringing back and restarting, so to speak, is the RAD program, the Rape Aggression Defense. It's a women's self-defense program, so to keep an eye out for those dates that will be starting up, and we'll be offering those classes. It's been wildly successful in the past, and I expect it to be continue to be. The Coffee with a Cop program is going to be coming back as well. And that's where we go to different venues, coffee shops, restaurant locations, and we invite people in to have coffee with us, on us. And we have a date coming up at the Fort in March, and I think we have one in April at McDonald's down on Plainfield Road. So 2 initial opportunities to really stop in and meet myself, meet the deputy chief, meet some of our patrol officers, our patrol captain, some other supervisors. And it's an opportunity to talk to us one-on-one, face-to-face, in a very relaxed conversational environment where, sometimes people are hesitant to come and approach us and talk to us. And this really puts us in a different light. At least we hope it does, and people feel more comfortable to come talk to us. So beyond that, looking at our website, which we'll be kind of tweaking a little bit with Melanie Cooper, our IT website developer, and we're looking to really put word out there of some of the other programs that we'll be offering and have in the future.
So people need to keep looking at the city website in your subset as well to know exactly where and when these Coffee with a Cop opportunities are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it won't just be 1 or 2. It'll be
No,
doing that for a while.
we'll be doing
I
that
suspect.
monthly, and then we'll also do it in conjunction with other events that might be going on, say the farmers market. We might set up a tent down there with coffee and to meet and greet people. I really try to take advantage of what's already going on sometimes in the community and piggybacking on that because it's already a natural draw for people coming into a location. But our website, the city's website, our Facebook site, all places where you'll see and keep up with that information.
Okay. Well, I encourage the viewers to take the chief up on his invitation and please introduce yourselves and get to know him a little bit better and welcome into the community. He's not only a great chief, he's a great guy. And I enjoy working with him and the other members of the department as well. And we'll be coming back at the next version of Lebanon in Depth, and we'll be talking more in depth about the opioid crisis and what's being done about it. And so until then, thank you.